RPGs. I feel like RPGs have gone the way of the dodo bird. I feel like they're not the same as I remember them, and I don't know when they shifted. It's a real big issue because I don't know where the RPG starts and the new stuff starts, and then they feel separate. And what I mean by separate is I mean that there's not as many numbers in front of me. Why aren't there numbers in front of me? Why don't I see numbers every level? Why don't I see numbers as I play? See, I remember playing Diablo 2. And Diablo 2, while it's dated now extremely, it just the game itself was fun. It was a great game. And a lot of the fun was number management for me. I had a lot of fun doing that. And maybe I'm kind of spreadsheety, and I get that I have a lot of spreadsheet mentality, but that's something I enjoyed. And then, I went and played Morrowind, and Morrowind is just literally just a spreadsheet. The game is a spreadsheet directly, through and through. From start to finish, you're worried about the numbers of your percentage chance to cast a spell, your percentage chance to hit, your skill with a weapon, and hell, even getting an upgraded weapon was a downgrade for you, because you didn't know how to use axe, and that was something beautiful within it, right? Because you didn't know how to use axe, so you never use that nice axe you got. You use that sword you have. And even though, they're different, that kept it, even though the weapons were just weapons, it made you feel more connected to the character. My character uses maces. That's important. It's important to him. Why? Because he can't use a fucking sword worth hell. He doesn't know how to use one. He never learned how to use one. But he can badger you with a mace all day long. And while he's doing it, he happens to be a master of restoration. But don't ask him to shoot a fireball. He doesn't know how. He never learned, really. And while maybe he can make it a little bit warmer in the area, he doesn't know how to cast a fireball. And that's kind of fun, right? Because the next time I play, maybe my next character is just a short... Maybe my next character is the short blade, stabby guy, right? But he uses illusion magic. With illusion magic, you can disappear and reappear anywhere, and throw off your target. And sometimes you could use sound to disorient and stuff like that, and you felt like you were an illusionist. And then Oblivion comes in, and I love Oblivion for this mysticism. While it was better in Morrowind, you really could be a mysticism mage. I felt that way, at least, and Alteration has always been something beautiful. Alteration allowed you to have shield effects, fire shield, frost shield, lightning shield. And not only did these shield effects boost your armor rating by the percentage, but they also took the element into factor. So if you had a lightning shield on, you couldn't be struck by lightning as hard. If it was a 25% shield, they did 25% less incoming shock damage. And that felt great because, and as an illusion, or as an alterationist, right, an alteration master, you could weave these spells together. And you'd never really get hurt by any element. You could notice that guy over there is a necromancer. You know he uses frost. So what do? Well, frost shield. Well, you're fighting some Daedra later on, and you put a fire shield on, and that it felt like you could equip for what you wanted. And the numbers were there to back you up. That is something I feel like is missed a little bit. See, in Skyrim nowadays, we're looking at things a little differently. We have Oak Flesh, which is a replacement for Shield, and Shield was something beautiful. Like I said before, like it's something I loved. I loved the shield effects, and I loved all the elemental shield effects. Elemental shields are interesting to me, but now we just have armor rating. And while Oak Flesh was fine for that, it felt like it had lost something. And not only that, but now there's, in Oblivion, they made the switch over to no hit dice, right? And something about that's a little bit disconnecting for someone who likes Morrowind. And I know that sounds weird, but like you can't fail. It feels like you can't fail. And failure is what makes your character more well, stronger. If you want to be a stronger character, what do? You fail enough to no longer fail anymore. See, I remember playing my character in a Morrowind, and I do remember stopping all of what I was doing, learning destruction spells, just so I could train my short blade. Why? Because short blade was kind of part of the toolkit that I was using at the time, and I had mistakenly decided to not level it enough, and that caused issues for me. So I couldn't hit. I couldn't hit anymore. So what did I have to do? I took a few levels away from my magic training, and I decided to focus on how to use a sword. And guess what? That character no longer had that issue anymore. And not only that, but I could use my blade and use enchantments on them to even further my magical use. And that's great, because that character now, he hit a roadblock and I decided that there was a few ways around it, and I felt like the easiest way was to pick up another skill. And while it would set me back a little bit, it would only put me forward later on. And that's fantastic. Not only that, but that character started out wearing no armor at all. I was going to be unarmored. But then I found that orcish armor had the best enchants value for me, and so I started wearing medium. Well, medium armor was heavy, so how did I counteract that? Well, I started using strength enchants. Strength enchants, even though they're not important for a mage, definitely made sure I could carry the full set. And so I equipped my shield and I enchanted it with strength, and it was a lot of strength. It was an orcish tower shield, so it could hold a lot of enchantment on it, and that meant that basically the full set was covered just on that shield. And while I didn't get what I might have necessarily wanted at the start, the character became something different. And that felt great to me, because now I've started to interweave a bunch of different things, and now I'm a medium armor, short blade wielding mage. Whereas when I started, I was just a sorcerer, just some guy out there shooting spells. But now I can stab you, and now I can block against you, and that kind of just built around itself. It built around everything around the character. And everything you do improved you slight bit. It wasn't phenomenal, but you got there. And you got the way you wanted as well. I've noticed a change, though, in not only games of first-person view and third-person view, but also in, pull away, isometric, where a lot of things should have stayed. See, I really love Divinity 2 because Divinity 2 brought back so many of those mechanics that I missed from the older games. And Thief was another franchise, as I know that we're going back to first person, but Thief was another franchise that brought in a different level of RPG. Now it wasn't about the numbers necessarily. It was about the thinking, the critical thinking involved with getting from point A to point B and then back out to point A again. And how could you do that with maintaining a good amount of money? Keeping that money. And not only that, but the issue was that there are guards everywhere. And the farther you get in, away from point B, the more things start getting messy. And you're going to have to make mistakes. You're going to have to do whatever you can in moment, because guess what? Sometimes there's not a right answer. And that's fun, because then you get creative. You can say it how you want, but I do and see, I understand why a lot of RPGs have shifted to this action-focused combat. Because it's more interesting visually. It's more interesting in a more pseudo way, where you're not really focused on the character. You're focused on what you're doing every minute. And that shift has really caused a divide between me and new games, and this is why I stopped playing a lot of newer games, is because I like investment. I like time investment. Another reason that the Battle Royale genre never piqued my interest. It never piqued my interest at all. I remember playing with buddies on PUBG, and I never really enjoyed the game very much because it was moment-to-moment gameplay. And I get that Twitch-like skills are an important thing in the grand, scheme of everything, and people like that. People like to watch it. But I don't want to watch a game. I bought a game for the interactive media, and I want to interact in the world. I want to change things around me. I want to manipulate the world and put myself in a disposition that may be good or bad, depending on my own actions. Another one I remember is in Morrowind. One time I had used the lock spell to lock myself into the library of Avag. The reason I did this was because I wanted to steal all the books and things inside. So I ran inside, I locked the door behind me with a lock spell. Well, no one in the room had a key, so I was good. I could stay in there. The door wasn't locked, but I locked it. So there's no key for the door, and no one knows how to unlock it. I could steal everything, and then what did I do whenever I filled all my pockets? I teleported back. I used recall, and recall sent me all the way back to my home, quote unquote, and I started throwing things around and making sure everything was where I wanted it. That's how a thief, an arcane thief, should play. A character who is completely different than a normal thief. While a thief may be able to open a door, can he keep others from coming in it? No. The difference in play styles matter, not only on a very fundamental level, but everywhere in the game, at a superficial level as well. If you're playing a character that is a thief, you should feel like that when you play it. You should understand what that character wants. What does that character want? Does he want gold? Fame? To survive another day? That kind of character, when you roleplay it in a way, can become much more than just numbers on a screen, but the numbers indicate where you're at in the world, your status. So the numbers that you have aren't just a manifestation of like a character sheet. They're a manifestation of you in the world, where you place yourself in the structure, in the hierarchy going on there. You exist on a spectrum there. I think it's very important to just stop and think about it, where some characters that are thief characters, they don't need the money. They just want it. Greed is a powerful character. See, it's not just the numbers that have changed. I feel like a lot of what's changed is the open world nature. See, open world games are kind of insidious in the way that they talk about it. It's not necessarily open world, is it? A lot of it is just a large set box, an area which you can look at, not an area which you can interact in much. See, I recently sat down and played a playthrough of Skyrim, and a lot of what I felt through that game was just that I was walking through what would essentially be a play set. None of it really was interactable in the way that I felt like it should have been. The Dwemer ruins were mostly just set pieces. They were beautiful to look at nonetheless, but they weren't much to interact with. You couldn't do anything in it. See, and while I'm playing through Morrowind or Oblivion, I don't feel that way as much. Now, I know there are a lot of set pieces, but the thing is that Morrowind had you interacting at almost every single corner. Not only were you interacting with just the environment, but things would come after you, and you'd have to fight it off, and then you'd go in to the next chamber of, wherever you're at, and it felt hard to get through it all. The difficulty wasn't necessarily that you would be fighting things. The difficulty was navigation, and you knew whenever you weren't supposed to be somewhere. You knew when you needed to move. That's really the big thing. And not only that, but you had some kind of, memory of how you got in. It was very important to understand how you got in, because you couldn't get back out the other way sometimes. Caves didn't have exits and entrances. Something that I felt like Skyrim had a little too much of. you had to turn back around and you had to navigate your way back out. And not only that, but sometimes there were multiple ways in and out, but the thing was that they were inside. So you would, do a loop or so inside the instance, but it still meant that you had to find your way out in some manner. And that became a bit of more of a difficult thing to do because, well, unless you left something there, you weren't going to find your way out. And I do remember in Morrowind leaving torches around on the ground. Why? Because I knew they wouldn't despawn. So I could travel through and eventually I'd find one of my torches and that would lead me out to where I needed to go. And that's what I'm talking about between, not only just the numbers, but the game feel has shifted. It's changed. It's kind of adapted in its own way. And I feel this not only just really hurts the game genre, but it makes it more like a movie. And I don't enjoy sitting back and watching a movie whenever I'm trying to interact in a world. I'd rather feel like I'm taking part and not just watching and observing. Observing is fun and it's an interesting experience, but it's not what I paid for whenever I buy a video game, especially not an RPG. The shift between open world and sandbox has really happened dramatically for me, I think, because sandbox games were something different. They weren't just a big map. They were a map that had just hundreds, thousands of things to do, things that you would find and then you'd remember for months later because you were like, I'm going to go back there whenever I'm higher level. I'm going to go back there whenever I'm, have this item. Maybe not only is the way to get in locked, maybe you need a key from, a mountain 500 kilometers the other way, and maybe whenever you finally get the key, you have to come all the way back, and maybe that's not even the entrance. Maybe you can't find the entrance. That was interesting because you had to remember where you were going. You had to remember your plans. You had plans to go forward. Skyrim, I don't feel like I have plans. In Skyrim, I don't feel like I have plans. I feel like I have actions. I do step by step. I think in the moment. I don't think about where I want to be tomorrow. I think about what I saw right now. And that drives a bit of a wedge in for me. I don't like that. And I feel like this has only been more exacerbated, not only in just the, singular franchise that is the Elder Scrolls, but across all the video games in the RPG genre. I mean, how many of your favorite franchises have kept true to what you remember, or how they felt, or even the design that they had before? And while I feel like branching out and trying out various different things is important, but you can't just forget the people that were there to build this genre, because we paid money for these video games. We built the industry that is here, the people, not the video games, the corporations, the people behind it. They built what we like, but we made sure it succeeded. And I feel like we're not getting what we want anymore with pay to win features coming in. I mean, especially within the most recent Deus Ex game, you could buy skill points, which is just a fundamental flaw. I feel like if you can buy skill points, that's a flaw within the design that they messed up somewhere. You can't sell me skill points. You should give them to me for playing and enjoying the game and being invested in the world. I don't want to pay for these things. I want to invest my time to get them. And that's really the difference here on that, as well as pay to win has really come in to the RPG genre as a whole. Skyrim itself has just released a whole bunch of content. While I feel like it's not the same pay to win structure, I feel like it's one of those things where they're piecemealing it out now. Skyrim has been sold to us 3 or 4 times now, and it's been piecemealed every time. They keep adding just the tiniest amount that they can to make it more relevant. But it's not relevant anymore, is it now? It's relevant to us, the people who want to play the games. The thing is that this has also shifted across all RPGs. Not only do I remember Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars, that franchise was fantastic. Knights of the Old Republic was a great game and a fantastic RPG with great combat. Now, while the combat is dated, it is very fundamentally just allows you creativity in every moment to moment, and that's the moment to moment I should be worried about, the combat. And Knights of the Old Republic did it very well. They had a fantastic story arc, and they had 2 games that are both great, and you should play them if you have not. But then, now we have, Star Wars games that come out, and they aren't very RPG focused. The recent one is more of a Dark Souls game, but it's not exactly an RPG, is it? And while I understand that Dark Souls is an RPG, I just don't feel like it clicks in the same way that what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about stats and numbers, and Dark Souls, that franchise, is an RPG, but the recent Star Wars game, it's not. It's an action RPG. And action RPGs have their place, but I feel like that's all the RPG genre has become. This has shifted even in RPGs that are not single player. MMOs have shifted this way. MMOs have changed and developed into this way as well. They're selling you piecemeal now. They're changing the designs. They're limiting the scope of what could be shown to you. And the way they limit it is for moment-to-moment gameplay, not for what you want tomorrow or the next day or where you're going in a month. They don't want you to think about that as much. They want you to think about now and here and what you're doing in the exact moment. And while I understand that that's more fun for a lot of people, for me personally, I wish numbers and statistics and a real, actual sandbox game could come back to the market. Because this has affected all kinds of franchises, and I'm kind of concerned about the next installment in the Elder Scrolls franchise. I'm concerned about it. Why am I concerned? Because I don't feel like it's going to hold true to the values that I hold with Morrowind, Oblivion, and even to a lesser extent, Daggerfall. I say to a lesser extent because I never really played it. Either way, what do you all think about RPGs, as well as MMOs, and the design and where they're going? This is a little bit of a conversation that I want to get started. And I want to have more of these topics with you all and conversate about this stuff. In the background, I'll probably just play whatever I have. But, anyway, thank you all for watching. This has been SpyPie here, and I will see you all in the next video.